Hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. Be quite nice. Have a good time. You'll be very evil. You'll love that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as Being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentary.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And I used to say, hey, Greg Morgan, and he used to say, please call me Greg, and I wouldn't do it.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cells.
And now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour.
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries.
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the power.
Listen to the podcast, subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're going to have a problem.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it now!
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my Father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Happy Saturday, everyone. What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. We are here for your Winged Eagle podcast for June 25th, 2022. Really funny story to tell you guys about real quick. I am sorry for the 10-minute delay here on the podcast. I went live right on time like I'm supposed to, but unfortunately I went live on tomorrow's Forbidden Door review stream that I had already set up, and I was live for about a minute before I realized it. It was only running through the countdown screen, but I was like, shit. So I had to go stop that, privatize the video so it's gone now, and I tried to, during the new intro of this video, to try to set up tomorrow's stream because I had originally put a link down here in the description below for tomorrow's Forbidden Door review. But since I already went live, that video is like kind of concluded, and I was like I had like 2.5 minutes to figure this out. So I now have a new stream for tomorrow, although I was doing it so fast, I want to make sure that it's working. I was getting all sorts of warning signs. Okay, so yeah, now the new Forbidden Door review is on my page now on the podcast playlist. I want to click this real quick and put the new link in the description for you guys, because if you click on that, it's going to show some other bullshit. But if you go down to the description right now, I am pasting that in and saving it. That should take you to the correct link for tomorrow. There we go. We are good. Sorry for doing all this maintenance right as we're coming up here live today, but we do have a lot to talk about. It's a loaded episode. I think it's going to be a little bit news heavy because I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to SmackDown last night, or Rampage for that matter. But we do have some pretty interesting wrestling news to get into. We are going to blow through some of the results. I was also not here this past week on Wednesday to do the Dynamite watch along, so we definitely want to talk about Christian Cage's promo, Okada showing up on Dynamite, and of course we want to speculate on who Bryan Danielson's hand-selected opponent or replacement is going to be at Forbidden Door against Zack Sabre Jr. and this Wednesday in Blood and Guts. I think there's only one name on most of our minds. We're going to talk about that, but probably also try to talk about some other possibilities for that as well. We'll also talk about some news and notes from Forbidden Door's media call. We also had a interview with Fightful with Sean Ross Sapp and Miro, or interview with Miro on Fightful with Sean Ross Sapp. Interesting news and notes coming out of that as well. We'll talk like for 5 seconds about last night's SmackDown, maybe preview Money in the Bank a little bit, because it feels like WWE's trying to build Money in the Bank and SummerSlam at the same time, because we did get a challenge last night laid down for SummerSlam as well. Big Monday coming up on Raw. John Cena returns to WWE to celebrate his 20 years in the company. Most people expect that he will kick off some sort of a program or feud heading into SummerSlam. So we're going to be here to talk about that as well. So basically, you've got 3 straight days of streaming here on the channel. We got this podcast right now, tomorrow night after Forbidden Door, and we will be up here for a Raw review on Monday, because I want to talk about whatever the hell John Cena is going to do. We'll wrap up the podcast here today with full Forbidden Door predictions. We got 3 matches on the buy-in, 8 or 9 matches on the main card. It's going to be a long card. It's a little bit, as good as this card is, it's really disappointing, because you can think about, when you think about how great the card could be if we didn't have so many injuries that we're currently dealing with, really in both companies, but AEW has been hit particularly hard, and it's really put a damper on what I think would normally be a pretty badass pay-per-view card. This one is still very good. I think tomorrow's going to be one of the better nights of wrestling of the year, but in terms of some of the matches that the fans were really hoping to see, we're not getting those due to Punk and Danielson's injury and a few other guys. So I think tomorrow's still going to be great, but might be lacking the greatness it could really have. And Tony Khan did mention on the Forbidden Door media call that he is open to doing a part 2. And I can already tell you, if they do a second one of these, the second one is going to be better. I just think if they do one in another year where you have a little bit more talent available and injuries have not plagued the card and caused so many changes, with a whole lot of people healthy and with the right people healthy, this could be, a pretty awesome pay-per-view. So I'm already kind of looking forward to next year, thinking it might be better than this one. But that's not to say tomorrow is going to lack for any good wrestling, because it's going to be badass. And that's pretty much what's on the schedule for today. Stephanie McMahon, Triple H, we're going to talk about their return in the company as well. We got some news on Ric Flair's last match, all sorts of fun stuff to get into this afternoon. So thank you for being here. Again, I apologize for the 10-minute delay. Let me find where I'm at here so I can see you guys, so I can read the chat, and I can make sure that I can be seen and heard and all that good stuff. All right, cool. All right, yeah, and then if you go down to the description right now, like I said, click that link. I'm checking it myself to make sure I did it right. All right, we are good and ready to rock there. So, crisis averted. All right, I can be seen, I can be heard, and we are ready to rock and roll. Hope you guys are having a good day. Let me cruise over here to the chat and say hi to everyone. Please do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me. If you are not a subscriber, please subscribe. And I did spill some water on myself, as I'm noticing that now. But good to see Ben. Oh, I'm sorry, I got to go way up here. Tatanani and Rodrigo. We've got Sam, James, Andy, Big J, Barry MK. I owe you a DM about Hawaii. We've got Matos, Trey Williams, Low Justin, Ben Forbes. George Morris is here with the $5. Thanks, dude. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? And how is Bub? And Tito, my cat Strudel, very aggravated and hissing and has an ear infection. And Sonny's lawyer quit on her. Oh, you know what? I didn't write down any of the Sonny stuff. I didn't read into that story. All I know is that her attorney has filed some sort of a petition or a motion to be removed as her legal counsel because she's just uncooperative, and he or she probably just hates Sonny, so they've requested to get the hell away from her. Not even lawyers want to defend this girl. That's pretty bad. Of course, Bub and Tito are always doing well. George, thank you for that. And sorry to hear about your cat's inner ear infection and all that hissing. Luckily, my cats really don't hiss at all, so I'm pretty lucky there. But good to see you back, man. I appreciate you being here. Divine Ricks as well. Rarely Even. David Brown and How Wheezy. We got Monkey Wrenches here. Glad that David is chilling out with a drink. That is awesome. Ronnie is here as well. Mark Simpson, Michael Cuomo, Deshaun, Sonic, James, Vash, Red Raven, Chaz, Mike Witt, Purcell Gray, Ben, Psycho, and Divine Ricks with $5. Thank you so much for that, dude. Hey, Greg, I'm actually looking forward to the men's Money in the Bank match. It would be interesting to see Sami Zayn win the briefcase. Sami Zayn and Seth Rollins are the only two guys I want to see that win that briefcase that are currently advertised for the match. It's those two. I think it's Sheamus. It's Drew McIntyre. Probably somebody else. And I think we have one more spot to fill. I don't have the exactities written down for the Money in the Bank match. But Sami Zayn, I'd be fine with it. When you think about it, I mean, he's been kind of involved with the Bloodline. He just signed a new deal with WWE. Had the big match with Johnny Knoxville at WrestleMania. So, you know, he might actually be in line to be doing some things in the company, you know, since he signed that new deal. Kevin Owens also signed the new deal as well. And what did he do? Went right into the main event of WrestleMania to work with Stone Cold Steve Austin. So big things could be in Sami's future. And as much as I think kind of Seth Rollins has earned the Money in the Bank based on his program with Cody and everything that he's done, and plus how, you know, hilarious his gimmick and his character and his suit-wearing ass is, I would love a callback to 2015 for him to win the Money in the Bank briefcase and potentially cash in on Brock and Roman. But Sami would be a new idea, and, you know, in most cases, as long as your name's not Baron Corbin or Damian Sandow or Kennedy, I think for the most part, when you win the briefcase, you're probably going to win the title, or Otis, I should say. But Sami is one of those guys where if he does take it, I think he might actually win the title. What if Sami took it and cashed in on Roman? I mean, that would be just great shit. But yeah, I'm into any fun possibilities there. But Sami and Rollins, I don't see it getting much more fun than that. Let me see who else is here. I think I got you, James, as well. JL Hassan is here. And Population 420. Good to see you. Ahmed, Isaac, the real YouTube or YT, whatever that means. Anyway, good to see you guys in here. Once again, please smash that thumbs up button for me, and we will start getting into some wrestling news and notes. However, before we do that, we need to acknowledge one very, very sad anniversary that we're pretty much right on top of today, June 25th, which is now the 15-year anniversary of the brutal and tragic murders of Nancy and Daniel Benoit. I believe they were killed a couple of days ago, of course, by Chris Benoit, who then killed himself, I believe, around the 24th-ish, and then I believe 25th might have been the night of that Monday Night Raw, where we got the information. Raw, it was canceled. It was a 3-hour show that was booked, and they ran a 3-hour tribute special in an empty arena to Chris Benoit, complete with video package and heartfelt comments from the stars and everything. Mere 24 hours later, or just several hours later, the details of what had actually happened came to light, and WWE had to do some pretty uncomfortable backpedaling the very next night on ECW, with Vince coming out and saying, now that we know what happened and no mention of Chris Benoit will ever happen on our program again, we sincerely apologize. We did not know that that was the case, and of course, we know all the fallout from that and what went down. Dark Side of the Ring just did a big piece on that a couple of years ago, which we detailed and chronicled in detail. And about 5 years ago, I remember doing a video on the 10-year anniversary of the Benoit murders. And the fact that it's been 15 years now, I still remember the day that it happened. I remember what I was going through. I was moving. I remember being at work the next day and showing my friend, like a MySpace article on my BlackBerry about it. And it was horrific. I've talked about it many times on this channel before. When I started this channel, the Benoit murders were only 3 years old. It had just happened 2.5 years ago when I started doing this. Now it's 15 years. since that has happened. And yeah, obviously still easily in my mind the biggest and worst tragedy wrestling has ever suffered. I mean, wrestling's had some tragedies, don't get me wrong, especially what happened to Owen. I think I'll die not being over that, but with a lot of wrestlers from the old days, there's tragedies everywhere. Bruiser Brody and the Von Erichs and the countless early and young deaths and some murders. Some people actually were killed and stuff. But this was such a different situation because this was a mainstream star. This is a guy that had a title match that day on pay-per-view, did he not, against CM Punk? And he was in the main event of WrestleMania just 2 years before this. 3 years before this, whatever it was, celebrating in Madison Square Garden. He's one of the most respected wrestlers ever. Everybody that ever spoke about Benoit prior to his death had nothing but good things to say, positive things to say, what a class act he is, how much they respected him. And when you combine all of that onto this already fucked up situation, it just made the whole thing even that much worse because he literally was the last person on a lot of people's minds who would have thought he would ever be capable of doing something like this. So Nancy and Daniel were taken away due to this, and Benoit really kind of losing his mind and all of that. But, we've gone through the details of what happened and why and what our opinions are of it more times than I can even count on this channel. I just thought it was important to at least acknowledge that it's been 15 years now and feel so bad for the family of Nancy and Daniel Benoit and Chris's other son, who now has to live with this. And it's just sad. Nancy's sister and a lot of people that we saw on the dark side of the ring, that had, close connection to this is just sad. And the whole situation is sad. But yeah, 15 years. I can't believe it's been that long. It's been 15 years since Benoit, and it's been 23 since Owen. And those were the two worst tragedies ever. And they happened, just 7 years apart. Pretty crazy. 8 years apart, whatever it was. So anyway, rest in peace to Nancy, a.k.a. Woman, of course, and Daniel Benoit. It's a complete shame and tragedy that they were taken from us like that. So just wanted to acknowledge the anniversary of the Benoit murders. I guess we'll talk about the latest on the scandal first. Of course, the fallout from Vince McMahon being investigated by his own board. I believe there are a total, as of last count, of 7 firms launching independent investigations against WWE. So they are under a whole lot of investigations by a whole lot of different law firms for all sorts of different reasons. Much of it is financial, a lot of stock stuff, of course, whatever they're going to dig up in the Vince McMahon nonsense. Vince McMahon has been on TV the last 2 WWE major shows, Raw and SmackDown. Oh, actually, although he was not on SmackDown last night, so I think we were safe from Vince there. But as we saw 1 week ago, I think it was last Friday, it was announced that Vince McMahon would be stepping down as WWE CEO and not be performing as many of those duties, but he would be remaining in control of his creative input and the creative aspects of WWE. He would still be a part of that. It was announced then that Stephanie McMahon, his daughter, would take over as interim CEO until the investigation concluded, and she basically jumped right into that role right away, and she has had her first full complete week now as CEO. And PW Insider had a report this week that said Stephanie McMahon did have kind of what was called an all-hands-on-deck company meeting where she addressed the elephant in the room, the investigation that the board is doing on her father. She also mentioned that she loved her father, and she will do, and WWE, and she will do whatever she can to help the company during this time and to perform her job as best as she can. Now, Stephanie has also been actively involved in meetings that you would normally see Vince in, so they are taking this seriously from a CEO perspective. Vince has taken a step back, and Stephanie has stepped in and assumed these roles. Now, Meltzer, in The Observer, he had kind of elaborated on this as well, although he, as Dave tends to do, is doing mostly speculation. But he did say something interesting here, that Stephanie, it turned out she was appointed by a special committee of 8 board members, and all 8 of these board members did not include herself, Vince, Triple H, or Nick Khan. So these were board members away from the inner circle, and they were the ones that made the decision to appoint Stephanie. So that's a good thing to at least make note of, because a lot of people were just thinking that Stephanie is literally a puppet for Vince. He is going to be texting her and being in constant contact with her in terms of how to do everything. But the fact that she was kind of hand-selected without much of Vince's input, that might take away from that a little bit. Maybe she isn't actually there to be a puppet. Maybe she is actually there to be the CEO, and Vince is a little bit limited. Now, as the CEO, does that essentially mean that she is Vince McMahon's boss? She's the CEO. He's essentially the head of creative. So if he wants to go out and do another stupid promo, does she have the power to say, guess what, Dad? I can't let you do that. I think technically on paper she has that kind of power, but I don't know, and we did not see him on SmackDown last night. So maybe Stephanie was like, Dad, you need to cool it with this. I know we're sparking a good rating, but we also look like idiots, so maybe think this one through. So that whole situation there is really interesting. Now, we also learned this week that WWE has, in fact, let go, or John Laurinaitis has left his position. Many people in the company believe that they will never have to deal with him again. It's not really going to work out for him to be the scapegoat like so many people were claiming, because Vince is still heavily involved and named in these reports and in these investigations, and the investigation is going to turn up a whole lot of shit on Vince. You can't just fire Laurinaitis and have him take the fall for it. It's not really how that's going to work. So Laurinaitis, however, is gone, but this company continues just to be one giant clusterfuck because they have named in the interim John Laurinaitis' replacement as Bruce Pritchard. So now you have the head of creative, who is now the head of talent relations. And a lot of talent has spoke out and said, now when you need time off, normally you go to one person for that, but now you're going to have to go to Bruce, who is now in a position of creative as well, and these lines are going to get crossed, and most of the talent is just basically worried that one person handling both of those jobs, it's going to be really hard to get anything done or to get anything approved, as if it's not probably a pain in the ass as it is already when they're fully staffed. Now putting a lot of stuff on Bruce's shoulders. Vince McMahon, they say he knows three people. He knows Vince, he knows Bruce, he knows John Laurinaitis, and he knows Kevin Dunn, and that is it. And I just think that they really need to spread some of these responsibilities out. Bruce was sitting on his ass enjoying life doing a podcast just a few years ago until, WWE kind of took notice of its popularity and he started talking to them again, got back in good graces, and now Stephanie McMahon, once firing Bruce Pritchard for bringing a gun into the locker room, now they're working side by side and she's the new boss, and, who knows how that's going to affect Bruce's role in the future, if it's going to increase or decrease, and if any of that stuff is water under the bridge or not. But there is just a lot of turmoil and uncertainty in WWE right now, and a lot of investigations going on that in the end are probably going to uncover some pretty gnarly stuff. And right now, WWE is still doing fine. They got the second biggest pay-per-view of the year coming up in a month. They're putting in some good ratings. SmackDown drew a decent number when Vince popped out. Raw this week did 2 million viewers, not because of Vince. I don't think nobody even knew he was going to be there. But the scandal has resulted in some positive ratings for WWE. I don't necessarily think that's a good thing, because ratings can change instantly. They can be up one week, but they can be drastically down the next. So just sparking a good rating for 1 week isn't any sort of a long-term solution at all, I don't think. But their ratings have not hurt. Now, what could hurt in the future is these TV deals, these networks that have these multi-million-dollar, $500 million deal with WWE that everybody expect to be worth more money next time around. That's some of the stuff that could be affected here, why Vince might have to take a step back. Vince might have to leave his position for the good of the company. Who knows? We have no clue what the investigation is going to turn up, how bad it's going to be, and how WWE is going to respond. We can only wait to see how that goes. But there's so many elements at play here for WWE's future and a potential future sale and all the stuff they want to do. At some point, Vince, 75-year-old Vince, is going to have to look himself in the mirror and say, if I do want to sell this company, now might be the time because of the mess that we're in. Or is that something that they try to fix, let blow over, and then approach a sale again in a couple of years? I don't know what the right or proper corporate strategy is. I would think that a corporation like this would have some sort of strategies in place in the event of something crazy like this happening. Most, I would assume, do. But it sounds like it's just utter complete turmoil in WWE, and I think a lot of the talent is really uncomfortable just because they know how discombobulated the whole machine is normally without any turmoil going on. And now when you had this investigation and, of the first time that Vince McMahon hasn't been in charge in 40 years, other guys' responsibilities and people who aren't even really great at their job to begin with, whose responsibilities are increasing, I would be uncomfortable as hell if I was a talent there. And if I was somebody who's a free agent right now, possibly like a Claudio or somebody like that, and I've got to choose where I want to sign, I don't know. I mean, this house over here looks like it's on fire, but there's a party going on at this house. I'm going to go to the house with the party and the kegs and the girls. It just feels like that would be the better choice. And if there are any free agents right now who are mulling offers from both, not that there can be a lot of those people, but there could be the Cesaros, the Bray Wyatts, other people like that. I know where I'd be going, but anyway, we'll find out. But Stephanie has now assumed the role of CEO. She's been involved now for a week, and we'll see how this goes and how this progresses. Now, her husband, Triple H, is also back at work. Now, Triple H reappeared back in NXT this week and held a talent meeting, letting all the talent know that he was back. Now, John Pollock reported that Triple H was at NXT and held a meeting. The Observer elaborated a little bit and said that people at the meeting who listened to him said that Triple H said he was back, but he didn't really say what that entails. He didn't really say what his exact role is going to be. It doesn't appear as if it's going to be exactly like the way it was before. I mean, Triple H was in 100% control of NXT from what I understand. Him and Shawn Michaels, really collaborative effort there at the end with Triple H handling the day-to-day stuff and Shawn being the head coach. And, I thought it was a great system, and you're learning from two of the best who really seem to enjoy their work and really want to preserve the future of the business and build talent and invest in them. And I felt horrible for both guys, Triple H and Shawn, when they put so much into guys like Gargano and Adam Cole and, so much hands-on work and training that they did with them, knowing that they could be huge stars. But, of course, they fell victim to the WWE system, and they were really kind of turned off by the creative direction of everything. And they're like, I just think we'd be better off somewhere else. And that happened to a lot of the NXT talent, the talent that didn't make the decision to leave and go over there. They released the rest of them, and they went over there anyway. So now Shawn has been there doing his work. Triple H is back, and you just have to wonder if there's really that love there. When the company can just dismiss 12 or 15 guys when you wake up in the morning and you see it on your phone that 15 people have been released, and half of those people you've been working so closely with trying to develop and build up to good performers. And I know that's also the nature of the business, but a lot of it doesn't make a whole lot of sense sometimes. It's one thing if you're in sports, and you got to cut players that, just aren't making it, or you got a salary cap to worry about, or there's some people that, are injured, or whatever you have to do, to send people down to cut them or whatever. But you don't see teams cutting top stars and shit and really, really talented people. So it's got to be disheartening to put so much energy, time, effort, and work into developing a talent just for WWE, just to release them like they are nothing. So Triple H apparently is back. Nobody truly knows what his role is going to be, but NXT had largely been taken control of by Vince and Bruce Pritchard. Well, now that Bruce is head of creative already on the red and blue shows that suck, now he's also the head of talent relations. Does he have time for horny, splashy paint? I don't think so. Let Triple H and Shawn Michaels take this back over. At least they'll take the talent that's there and do the best they can with it. And we'll see. But nobody really knows what Triple H is going to be exactly doing in NXT. All we know is that he's back, and all the best to him, because I thought Triple H did a great job with the black and gold. Those days are gone. However, Triple H is still capable, and maybe he can take horny splash paint and make it into something good as well, because I watch very, very little NXT. So yeah, welcome back, Triple H, and good luck, Stephanie, I suppose. We got some news on Ric Flair I want to talk about in just a minute, but let me cruise back over here to the chat and get reorganized here. I know I missed a couple of super chats coming in. I want to knock those out before we move on to Ric Flair. Thank you very much for that $1.99 population 420. Met him at SummerSlam. Really good to see you back in here, man. And everybody else that's been joining the chat since we started. Thanks for being here. Divine Ricks, thank you for 5 more. Wow, 15 years since the Benoit tragedy. After Benoit died, I stopped watching wrestling for a while until the summer of Punk. Yeah, that's a pretty healthy break. I kind of did the same thing. I was already kind of turned off anyway after Eddie Guerrero died. It became just watching a pay-per-view type of thing for me. The occasional Raw, I wasn't dialed in like I am now. But then after Benoit, it really just, took the wind out of my sails. But I wasn't doing a podcast yet or didn't have a YouTube channel yet. I had a lot of other interests, I was working hard, had a career, had a lot of friends, and I was doing stuff. So wrestling wasn't as important to me. But I did watch the very next pay-per-view. I think I watched the John Cena and Bobby Lashley match at Great American Bash and watched a couple other things around that year. But I just remember being gutted by it. And as I've spoke about Cena for so long, he's celebrating 20 years in the company. The Benoit tragedy, I've always credited as being one of the big reasons why we saw the Cena that we saw for those many years, for that long, because that was a direction WWE simply had to go in. And yeah, I can't blame anybody who took a little bit of a break after that Benoit stuff, because that was gnarly. And it's even harder when he's like one of your favorite wrestlers. I mean, how do you do that? How do you cope? Benoit was one of my favorite wrestlers. I wouldn't say he was my favorite, but I always have a special love for wrestlers like Angle, Benoit, Jericho, guys like that over some of the bigger stars. So Benoit had a special place in my heart. He did what he did, and fucking disgusting, man. Unbelievable. Still surreal to even think about that happened. Ahmed, I'm with you, man. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Cesaro or Johnny Gargano. Those two are my top picks. We're going to be talking about that pick in a minute, or Brian's replacement here in just a little bit. Joshua Aparicio, thank you so much for the $5. Hey, Greg, can't wait. Can't wait for Toru Yano versus Danhausen match will main event the pay-per-view. This isn't enough stars for that. There isn't enough stars for that match. Why aren't they doing? I don't have that match listed. Is Yano injured or something? Why aren't they doing Toru Yano and Danhausen? What the fuck? You think that should be main eventing the pay-per-view, though? You know what? I wouldn't even argue with that. I'd be perfectly fine. It would be entertaining as hell, and I'd be popping some popcorn. Great stuff. All right, I think that catches everybody up. Again, thanks again for those of you who have popped in since we've been starting. Please do me a favor and smash that thumbs up button for me. Some comedic news to report on Ric Flair's last match. Of course, Ric Flair's last match is coming up on July 31st, SummerSlam weekend, and he has still no opponent or opponents named. There's been a lot of rumored names. Some guys have been offered the match and have turned it down. It's been rumored that it's going to be a tag. A lot of people are expecting FTR, Jay Lethal to be involved in that somehow, perhaps, but we really don't know yet what's going to happen. We do have a referee. Mike Chioda has signed on to be the referee for Ric Flair's last match, which is a little odd. WWE, unfortunately, aren't going to let Lil Nate do that, so it can't be him. But Mike Chioda was a WWE referee. I mean, Mike Chioda did referee some of Ric Flair's matches. I'll have to go back and look. You guys can maybe look it up. Was Chioda the ref when Flair wrestled Savage at WrestleMania? I don't think so. I think it was Earl. Savage, when he maybe won the belt back from Savage in late 92, unless Chioda was the ref there. And then, of course, when Flair came back in 2001 and started wrestling in 02, 03, 04, all the way up until his retirement, I'm sure Mike Chioda reffed a ton of Flair matches. But I think Mike Chioda is just a legendary referee name that has had interactions with Flair before, and he was probably the best possible choice because a lot of the NWA referees are now passed away. I don't know what Nick Patrick is doing. Of course, Charles Robinson would be the obvious choice here, but WWE doesn't look like they're going to let him do that. Otherwise, I think he'd be the referee for this thing. And like I said, no opponent yet. But Flair, TMZ had some article up. They had interviewed Ric Flair, asking him about his match. And he's got like all these problems. You got to remember, he's 73 years old. He almost died like 2 years ago. He's on blood thinners. He's got a pacemaker, and he has inner ear issues. So this 73-year-old man is going to go in there with a computer in his chest, and he's going to be on blood thinners, and we know how Ric Flair loves to blade. Now, apparently, he's not going to be taking the blood thinners that day. I would advise not drinking that day either. But if he's on blood thinners and he decides to blade like he loves to do, he blades as much as he cries, he's going to spill a whole lot of blood in that ring, and it's going to be gross. Plus, he has inner ear issues, which is going to affect his balance and shit like that. We saw the training video of him and Jay Lethal, him taking the big top rope bump that he always loves to take. I just hope he makes it through this. I think part of me thinks that Ric Flair kind of hopes he dies in the ring here. I think that Flair wouldn't have it any other way. I think that Flair almost in a weird way would prefer to die in the ring or die partying. So he might have his chance here on July 31st. But all jokes aside, fingers crossed for Ric Flair that he does well. I have no doubt that whoever his opponent will be will take great care of him. If he has a tag team partner, he will be well protected. I have no doubt there. But it's just a hard match and a hard show to really get behind and be excited about. I don't even know if I want to see this, but I'm sure I will, and I'm sure we will talk about it when the time comes. AEW Tony Khan had the Forbidden Door media call the other day. You can find the entire transcripts to this media call over on Fightful. That's where I read a lot of the stuff, but I didn't want to read anything here word for word. If you want to read through all of that, you can check it out on Fightful, and credit to them for transcribing a lot of this stuff, but only a couple of little tidbits came out of there that I found interesting. One was Tony Khan was asked about a wellness policy. He said they have a wellness policy. But that was kind of all he said. It was more of a question that was centered around the situations around Moxley and Jeff Hardy, and how Tony Khan was talking about how they're very two different situations, and they don't really have a policy in place for alcohol. They have a wellness policy, but alcohol is not illegal. He says that most 90% or something like that, 99% of the locker room drinks, most of them drink after the show, and he doesn't really have a policy against it other than just be responsible and safe. But he does say that they do have a wellness policy for drugs and other things, but didn't really offer any details on that. WWE has got, I think their wellness policy is completely available. You can see it and read it on their corporate site, I believe. So if AEW does actually have a policy in place, that should be something that we should be able to access at some point. But he did talk about Moxley and Hardy and their differing, basically disciplinary actions. He said Moxley came to him. Moxley recognized himself that he has a problem, came to Tony Khan, wanted to get help, so he helped him. Where Jeff Hardy, of course, got the DUI, got himself in trouble, so he had no choice but to suspend him. Plus, when you factor in Jeff Hardy's past experience and all of that, and his past behavior, all of that played a role. And he did say that you do have to judge situations differently, and I do believe that. As somebody who's been a restaurant manager, I've had to deal with disciplinary things from staff members back in the day that, were the same as what somebody else did, but different because the situations are different. It just depends. So him kind of opening up about that, I found interesting that they do apparently have a wellness policy in place. I would really like to get a look at this wellness policy, to be honest, because I think it's something that they need to have, even though you have one of the more well-behaved locker rooms of modern times, pro wrestling now, WWE, AEW, everywhere for the most part. Not that you don't have your share of drinking, drugs, and bad behavior. It's a hell of a lot less than it used to be, where it felt like it was just 99% of the locker room back in the day. Now it's just a little handful. You don't hear too many crazy stories about the heavy drugs. Now everybody is positive, happy, and they all play video games, which is something that we're going to talk about here in a minute with Miro. So, those were the only things that I found interesting to talk about in terms of the media call. The Undertaker, speaking of SummerSlam weekend. Did I say WrestleMania when I was talking about Ric Flair earlier? I meant SummerSlam weekend. But anyway, Undertaker has got a one Dead Man show coming up in Nashville on July 29th. So this is going to be a one-man show. We kind of felt like he was possibly going to venture down this road based on what his Hall of Fame speech looked like. He had the headset. He delivered his Hall of Fame speech unlike anybody else had done it before, and it had a different vibe to it, and you could kind of tell he was maybe looking to do some motivational speaking or something like that. So apparently this is going to be an intimate setting where he's going to tell never before heard stories from the road, and he's going to answer questions from the audience. So you can buy tickets for this thing at Ticketmaster. Didn't catch the the venue that they're going to do this in, but apparently it's small. It's not going to be like a big 20,000 seat arena, just going to be a small, intimate setting where Taker can tell his stories, and they are going to film this, and it is going to air live on Peacock on July 29th. So this will probably be similar to the ones Foley was doing. Foley was doing the one-man shows for a while. I think he still does. And I know WWE Network put at least one of those on, or they aired one of them, and I really, really liked it. And I think I've seen 2 total by Mick Foley. So I would assume it's going to be something like that with The Undertaker. And that should be interesting to hear him, tell stories that we haven't heard before, and should be a fun thing to get a look at on SummerSlam weekend. Speaking of Undertaker, I do want to mention briefly Miro. Miro, of course, has returned back to AEW TV recently, and he is involved tomorrow in the big 4-way match to crown the new All-Atlantic champion, the brand new championship belt that AEW is unveiling. Miro is in that match tomorrow, and to give you a quick spoiler when we do our predictions later, I'm picking him. Well, Miro did an interview with Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful. You can catch that interview on Fightful's YouTube channel in its entirety right now. And I found a couple of things on the interview interesting, including his contract situation. Now, he has just signed a new long-term deal with AEW, but he revealed that his first deal was actually a super short, like an unusually short-term deal. And he claimed that he kind of gave him a COVID discount because, of course, there was no fans in the arena at that time when he came in. And he wanted to come in and kind of get himself developed for a short-term deal, so when he turns around and re-signs, he can get the big money. It sounds like that was a strategy that paid off, because when he came in, he mentioned he was, AEW signed Miro, the video gamer, Miro, the guy messing around with Kip Sabian and shit like that. But the new deal, his long-term deal there, they were signing the Redeemer. And the Redeemer, I've loved his character. I love the promos and the vignettes that he does. And what I found interesting about that is that it was a good strategy that actually paid off. It almost, I don't know if it was intentional or accidental, but it was almost as if Miro knew that he's going to have to find his way a little bit first in AEW. It's probably best to sign a short-term deal because you don't even know what you're going to do when you get in there. You don't know if your ideas in your head are going to get over with the audience. You might have to tweak some stuff, make some adjustments, and find your way. And if you are struggling to do that, you sign, like a long-term deal and you're struggling to get over and you can't figure out any, then that's where you can potentially get released and stuff. So he was better off doing this to be able to sign for bigger money later, find his niche, because when Miro came in, I even remember myself saying, I'm not sure, it ain't working for me. I was happy that Rusev got away from WWE. I felt like he was being mistreated there, but this didn't seem like a whole lot better. Miro's a badass. He should be presented as one. He's playing video games. He's doing a lot of the same kind of goofy shit he was doing in WWE, and he is way better than that. But then he found his way with the Redeemer gimmick, God's favorite wrestler, God's favorite champion. He's been easily my favorite TNT champion so far. Loved how he held that title. I felt like he should have held it longer. It was an upset in my mind when he lost, and I felt like he should be presented and booked like a dominant badass, and I feel like we've got that back a little bit more with him now, and I think it's really important that he wins the title tomorrow, so I'm really pulling for him hard. So those are some interesting tidbits about Miro there and his AEW contract that, he's got a long-term deal there, and it sounds like he is, and the company is invested, even though it did take them a while to get him back to TV. Now that he's there, hopefully he remains there in the future. And he was also asked, and this is funny coming off the Undertaker stuff, he was asked about the Undertaker's comments about modern wrestling. Undertaker's not been shy to talk about how he feels today's locker rooms in all companies, not just WWE, AEW, everywhere, are not as gritty as they used to be, not as tough as they used to be, not as manly as they used to be. Like, all this shit fucking matters. And we've talked about this before, how ludicrous that is to actually believe that wrestling locker rooms were better the way they were before, when you had locker rooms filled and loaded with drug abuse, regular physical abuse, bullies, people fighting each other, bringing weapons in, having heat. It's just constant turmoil. You've heard about in the 80s and all the needless deaths and the fights and the backstabbing and the political BS. Not that this stuff still can't exist in modern wrestling, but it's not nearly as prevalent as it was. And that's, excuse me, and that's what Miro had mentioned. He says Undertaker should not be ridiculing wrestlers today for being smarter. They're all way smarter, much more educated than they used to be back in the day. They're much friendlier because they're not all on drugs and moody. They're also a lot more positive. And those things, along with playing video games, is something that The Undertaker perceives as a bad thing or something that hurts the business, when anybody with a brain would feel that's actually a compliment to the business. That's what you want, because now you're not going to have to worry about too many people dying every 5 days. And Miro basically says this. He says, sorry, Undertaker, that we don't have guns and drugs and fight each other backstage, because that was very, very common back in the day. You really had to kind of fight for yourself. Wrestling was a gritty business. Wrestling was a dirty business, but at the end of the day, it is a business, and wrestling has become a bigger business run by publicly traded companies, and the business and the atmosphere and the vibe and the behavior and all that changes with it. And old timers, I mean, I'm getting old. I'm 45 years old almost. So I know what it's like to yearn for the days, you know, of your youth when you were young. I scowl like an old grandpa anytime I hear any sort of modern music at all. It's the worst shit I've ever heard. I was like, who listens to this stuff? How can you even fucking listen to that? That's exactly what my grandpa said about the shit that I was listening to in the 80s and 90s and stuff. So I get it. You know, I get that that's just the general, you know, that's what happens when, you know, people get older, wrestlers get older, they retire. A lot of wrestlers like Undertaker have that same kind of viewpoint, as the locker room isn't as gritty or as tough as it used to be. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. The way wrestling is structured right now, being a tough guy asshole isn't going to get you anywhere, isn't going to get you any extra pushes or attention or money in the business anymore. It's just not structured that way. And so Undertaker to continue to harp on this, I really like it when people way smarter than him shut him up, because I fully believe that Miro has read more books than The Undertaker. I'd bet anything on that. So good to see Miro happy, working in a place that he enjoys. He even said it was a very easy decision to resign there because of the creative freedom that he has and just the overall positive atmosphere for a guy that came out of the WWE system that, you know, can probably really appreciate that. So overall, good interview. Those were two very small details on what was, I believe, close to an hour-long interview. So you can check that out over there if you want to see all of it. Miro is always a joy to listen to. I think the guy is tremendous. That pretty much wraps it up for any sort of news that we wanted to get into. Like I said, I just wanted to speak a little bit about Stephanie McMahon, a little bit about Triple H, touch on the Ric Flair stuff before we get into, you know, SmackDown, Dynamite, and of course Forbidden Door predictions and all that stuff. So let me see what's next on tap here. I'm not going to talk much about SmackDown. I didn't really watch SmackDown because, to be honest, yesterday, this lovely day we had here in America, just peachy, wasn't it? Didn't really put me in much of a wrestling watching mood. As a matter of fact, I couldn't give two shits what happened on SmackDown last night. I had literally no care in the world at all. Didn't think anything was going to happen. Apparently nothing did. I didn't watch the show, just watched a couple of clips on YouTube. Here's what I took away from SmackDown. Natalya came out dressed like Ronda Rousey, and then Ronda Rousey beat her up. So what? Natty is not going to win that title at Money in the Bank. However, I'll give them credit. They are trying to make this as real as possible. Their social media their Twitter beef has gotten pretty personal. And I was like, maybe there is a little bit of real life heat between these two, or maybe the locker room just naturally is a little bit soured on Ronda Rousey. I thought Ronda Rousey was so great when she came in. I was so amazed how well she transitioned into wrestling, was happy that wrestling had her, was happy that wrestling had a female Brock Lesnar type that could draw and be a name on the marquee. But since she's been back, it's all that magic is gone. She feels like and looks like, from body language, she doesn't want to be there. She is the worst promo in the business, and there's nothing exciting or interesting about Rousey at all, and I just want her run to come and go and for her to leave the business. As far as I'm concerned, I have completely changed my tune on Rousey. She doesn't look or feel like her heart's in it, And I don't think wrestling really needs her, to be honest with you. So I don't think she's going to drop the belt here to Natalya, but I would still use Rousey as a way to launch the next performer. And I really think Lacey Evans might be that person when push comes to shove and when we finally get down to the time when Rousey is going to drop the belt. But we also have Charlotte, who is going to be turning back up real soon and will probably have some sort of a big match at SummerSlam. I feel like SummerSlam is going to be a lot of WrestleMania rematches. I feel like they might be gearing up for Bianca and Becky again. And I feel like might be getting Charlotte and Ronda Rousey again as well. But we will also have Money in the Bank briefcases this time around, which could make SummerSlam much more interesting when it happens. Also, on SmackDown last night, they continued the deal between Pat McAfee and bum-ass Corbin, and McAfee laid down the challenge for SummerSlam, correct? McAfee and Corbin at SummerSlam. Interesting why that challenge was not laid down for Money in the Bank, but SummerSlam is the bigger show, and that's probably the better place for that match, since McAfee kind of is an attraction, and he does really well. McAfee, probably one of the most over people in WWE. Fucking announcer. That's how it goes. So, yeah, that's all we're going to mention about SmackDown from last night. Also, Raw, like I said, on Monday, we'll see the return of John Cena. He's back to celebrate 20 years with the company. We are assuming that he's going to beginning or launching a program or angle with somebody that's going to give him a SummerSlam match. At least that's what we hope. Could be Austin Theory. Could be anybody. A lot of people think Theory is very likely there. Or on Monday, he might just come out to do the celebration and then start an angle with somebody the following week. But I think if Cena is going to come out there and bask in the glory of 20 years in the company, some asshole heel has got to come out there and interrupt him. And is there a bigger asshole right now in WWE than Theory? I don't think so. But somebody else coming out might be fun as well, so maybe we'll get Cena working with Bobby Lashley. I mean, Bobby Lashley has a United States title match against Theory at Money in the Bank, correct? He earned that on Monday. I wouldn't be against a John Cena, Bobby Lashley U.S. title match at SummerSlam. On paper, that's a match that looks very good. I still think Bobby Lashley owes John Cena a victory from 15 years ago, like we just talked about right after the Benoit murders, when Cena beat him at Great American Bash. And I don't think these two guys have really faced since, have they? So that would be an incredible callback 15 years later. But if they did that match at SummerSlam, even though I wouldn't hate it, it would be a match that I would want to see Bobby Lashley win. But I also think Cena coming back, he came back last year, lost at SummerSlam. I don't see him coming back just to do the exact same thing again. Come back, start a program with somebody into SummerSlam, get beat by him, and disappear. And if he faced Lashley, I feel like that's what would happen. I wouldn't want to see Lashley or Cena beat Lashley for the U.S. title. I'm fine with Cena beating Theory for the U.S. title. Fine. Squash him in 4.5 seconds like I give a shit, but not Lashley. So I think that Theory might find a way to escape. Since Lashley did win the gauntlet match to get to that U.S. title match, Theory can find a way to escape with his belt, and then that will set up Cena and Theory at SummerSlam, but then that leaves kind of Lashley without an opponent again and no title. So I don't know. I feel like Cena could work his way into the U.S. stuff. If Cena did win the U.S. title, I'd prefer him beat Theory and bring back the U.S. Open Challenge for a while. Then that would be a good spot to bring back Bobby Lashley or bring back the Cena and Lashley match and have Lashley beat Cena for the title. It would be much more memorable than him beating Theory for the title. So maybe you do it that way. But I think Cena and Lashley, as much as I like the idea at SummerSlam, I feel like it's unlikely just because I think Cena needs to win this time at SummerSlam. That's why I think Theory might be a better opponent for Cena. And I still fully expect at some point Cena to win at minimum one more WWE title before officially retiring. So who knows when that will come or what Cena's going to be doing, but he'll be on Raw on Monday, and we will be here to talk about it. Incidentally, this past week's Monday Night Raw did 2 million, did a rating of 2 million. That's up a bit from 1.8 from last week, and a 0.54 in the share, so solid number for Monday Night Raw, considering that's got to be a scandal number because there was nothing else going on Raw really that would make, an extra 250,000 people tune in. As much as I love the fact that Ezekiel is finally getting a chance to prove that him and Elias are different people after all these weeks and months of nonsense from Kevin Owens, we were all very happy that Ezekiel finally got vindicated and validated in that, but still that's not enough to bring in that many viewers. So that had to be scandal stuff. We'll see what kind of number Raw does this week. Should be a pretty good one and should remain, you would think, over the 2 million mark with Cena coming back. So I think Raw this week will pull in a pretty good rating. Dynamite this week. We'll get into Dynamite and Rampage, and then we will predict Forbidden Door. Dynamite this past week had a little bit of a bounce back from there. Low rating last week of 730,000. Back up closer to 900K, 878K, 0.31 in the share. So like I said last week, for the people that got very excited, really, really excited, rock hard boners over the randomly low AEW rating, lower than normal. AEW's ratings in their 3 years have been relatively consistent, all things considered. I think that's actually something very positive. Consistency is good in anything. So their rating dipped a bit. Fans got excited. I'm like, well, what's going to happen next week when they go kind of back to what they were? What's your excuse then? And that's exactly what happened. They're back up to the normal range. I've always considered AEW to be somewhere between 1.1 and 800K. Somewhere in there that's their neighborhood. And for that, and as long as they continue that, I don't think they're going to have any trouble getting their TV deals re-signed, anything like that. Plus, everybody watches wrestling in so many different ways. I watch AEW with you guys live every week, and I don't think that counts as a rating. I use a streaming app to watch it. They don't even know I'm watching. So, and plus, you look at attendance figures and stuff. Back in the 90s, the ratings were much bigger, but I think the attendance is better now. So it just depends. I mean, the early 90s, mid 90s is what I'm talking about, not Attitude Era 90s. But even during the worst parts in wrestling, when they had pretty relatively high ratings, there was a lot less on cable TV. You didn't have DVR, you didn't have a guide, you just had 30 fucking channels and it was on USA or whatever. So I think ratings, don't mean as much as they used to anymore, but they still matter. Social media matters. YouTube numbers matter. And WWE and AEW both rely on a lot of that stuff for their audience to watch. It's not all just TV ratings anymore like it used to be back in the day. But this was a little bit more of a bounce back for AEW, puts them back in a neighborhood that they're used to, and maybe a little bit less panicking involved. But this past week on Dynamite, of course, I had to miss this week. I was not up here watching it with you guys. There are going to be a few Wednesdays here or there throughout the summer that I'm going to miss just because my work schedule is very busy. And as a matter of fact, I'm 90% sure I'm going to be here Wednesday for Blood and Guts, but there is a tiny percentage chance I might not be. So do keep that in mind for this Wednesday as well. But my plan is to be here to watch Blood and Guts from Detroit and, of course, all of the Forbidden Door fallout. But in terms of last week on Dynamite, since I wasn't here to watch it with you guys, we got to talk about a couple of quick things that we saw on the show. Number one was Bryan Danielson unfortunately had to announce to the audience that he is not cleared to compete at Forbidden Door or Blood and Guts, currently booked for both, or we were hoping to see Danielson wrestle on both shows. Wrestling has been plagued by injuries, not just in AEW, but WWE as well. Both companies are really, really dealing with this, and AEW, I think, is dealing with it a little bit worse than WWE. WWE got it bad with Cody because Cody was a big part of their plans. But WWE is a company that's been around for 60 years, and in the last 25 or so years, injuries fucking up pay-per-views has been something that WWE has dealt with a lot since the business started moving faster. When you get a pay-per-view every month and people are wrestling every week and you start booking shows, injuries are going to fuck up pay-per-views all the time. They have experience with this. They, for the most part, know how to weather the storm, or at least have dealt with it before. AEW is only 3 years old. They're 36 months old. They haven't really had to deal with situations like this where injuries are massively screwing over their plans. They're going to crown tomorrow a new interim champion because their champion got injured. And instead of stripping him or forfeiting the title and crowning a new champion, they're going to do the interim thing. Of course, Danielson is out as well. Ishii got pulled last minute. There might even be some last-minute pulls from the pay-per-view tomorrow, and it's really kind of screwed up a lot of what their plans are. Kenny Omega is still on the shelf and things like that. So it's kind of how they handle these things will help dictate how this goes in the future for them, because this isn't the first time AEW is going to deal with injuries to a champion or to a major match on a pay-per-view. And I think when you look at Forbidden Door, as good as this card is, imagine how good it would be if everybody we wanted to see on the card was healthy and was there to wrestle. A lot of these matches would be different. I don't think we'd see the 4-way. I think we'd get some more one-on-one stuff and all sorts of great shit. If we would just have a healthy Danielson, healthy CM Punk, I think it would restructure a lot of how this card looks. But unfortunately, Danielson, who was supposed to wrestle Zack Sabre Jr., at Forbidden Door to determine who the best technical wrestler in the world is. Of course, that's not going to happen now because Danielson can't work. And, of course, he's also scheduled for Forbidden Door this coming Wednesday. I'm sorry, for Blood and Guts this coming Wednesday on Dynamite, and he's not cleared to work that either. So he's off the 2 next big matches he's booked for, but he assures the fans that although he's injured, he will be back. This is not a serious injury. Nothing's going to keep him out of action for a long time. Said his head is fine. He can read a book in 5 seconds and all this type of shit. He says his mind, his brain, his body is all going to be fine. He will be back, and this is a minor injury and a minor setback. So that's good to know. It's good to know that Danielson should be back pretty soon. I think the last time he wrestled was when I was there. It was at Double or Nothing in Vegas, and that's the last time he's really worked. So it hasn't been that long, and hopefully he'll be back in just a couple of weeks. But the big news out of this is that he has hand-selected his replacement not only to face Zack Sabre Jr. at Forbidden Door, but also his replacement at Blood and Guts. So he's got a guy in mind, and he said there's only one man, he says, that I trust to take my place and to wrestle for me. And when he says there's only one man, you know, I really do think that kind of narrows it down to just a couple of people. And this person is going to be the new member, I guess, of the Blackpool Combat Club. And most people are pointing their fingers right at Claudio, right at Cesaro. He should be the guy. And I agree. Cesaro is my top pick. Now, I didn't watch Dynamite on Wednesday, so I was kind of getting this information as it was coming in. So when I saw and heard that Danielson has hand-selected his replacement for Forbidden Door, I didn't really know that this person was also going to compete at Blood and Guts. And I also didn't know that this person, supposedly, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, is supposed to be the next member of the Blackpool Combat Club. So at first I thought Johnny Gargano would make the most sense. The match that him and Zack Sabre Jr. would have, like just a good technical wrestling match, would be incredible to watch. But since this is also going to involve Blood and Guts, not that Gargano is not tough or anything like that. Cesaro is big, Cesaro is strong, and Cesaro's got, some serious fighting abilities. He'd be a perfect guy to be paired up with somebody like a William Regal. Because where he's not from Cleveland, where Gargano is, so he's more European style. And of course, he's got a great reputation. He's a badass. I'm really hoping for Cesaro. You guys are welcome to place your bets for whoever you think it could be. I've heard everywhere from Lee Moriarty to Chris Hero, and there's been a lot of other possibilities as well. But when Danielson says he's hand-selected his replacement, only one guy that he trusts to wrestle for him, it feels like Cesaro has got to be that guy. Cesaro has been training. He's been back in the ring. There's also been talk that he was going to debut on WWE as the first member of Max Dupree's male model bullshit, and I think they teased more of that last night but didn't debut anybody, which means they probably have never known who it's going to be. I feel like if it was going to be Cesaro, and Cesaro was already picked, signed with WWE, and he's going to be in the group with Max Dupree, they would have debuted him last night on SmackDown. So I think they are just teasing it. I don't even think WWE knows in their mind who it's going to be. And if it comes down to where Cesaro is going to land, either be a male model or be in AEW and take Danielson's place at Forbidden Door, I'm really hoping he turns up in AEW. That would be a lot of fun. So I think that's who it's going to be. I'm going to pick Cesaro as Danielson's replacement, but you also have to wonder about Zack Sabre Jr. If the match was going to happen, Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr., you would have to assume Danielson was probably going to win. I don't think he was going to take a loss to Sabre Jr., although he might have wanted to. But since Zack is not in AEW, I think AEW is going to, insist that Danielson win that match. So you would assume that the outcome would probably stay the same. But I wouldn't rule out a Zack Sabre Jr. victory. So I think if Zack Sabre Jr. is going to win this match, then the mystery opponent is going to be someone of a lesser nature, like a Chris Hero or something like that. But I feel like all signs are pointing to Cesaro. He's my pick. He's the only obvious pick. I think with most of the audience, even in the arena, at this point, anybody other than Cesaro would be a letdown, especially when it's coming out of the mouth of Bryan Danielson. You tend to take him at face value. He's pretty genuine. And when he says he's got a major guy and only one guy that he would trust, you know, when you think about legitimacy, Cesaro or Gargano or Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt. Danielson's got a lot of history with Bray Wyatt. They go way back. Bray Wyatt was working with Danielson right around the time he got over and, you know, won the title at WrestleMania 30 back in 2014. So you could add Wyatt into that, but you're talking about a Forbidden Door match with Zack Sabre Jr. Bray Wyatt would not make much sense as an opponent for a technical wrestling match against Zack Sabre Jr. Blood and Guts would be a whole different story. He'd make a whole lot of sense for Blood and Guts, but he wouldn't make sense for the Blackpool Combat Club. Bray Wyatt is kind of got his own style. Bray Wyatt would make much more sense doing stuff like Malachi Black than doing stuff like Moxley and Danielson are currently doing. So I don't really have him on my radar, but there is the connection with Danielson there, so you at least have to think about it. But all in all, how can you not go with Cesaro in this? I think it's going to be him. See if you guys had any other ideas. Bronson Reed, Killer Cross, not bad. Greg Gagne, right on Mike Witt. We could do that. But I think Cesaro or Gargano are the likely picks. I don't know if Eric Redbeard against Zack Sabre Jr. That just wouldn't be a good-looking match. Zack Sabre Jr. is a stupidly good wrestler, and I want to see him in the ring with somebody just as stupidly good as him. That's why Danielson, Gargano, Cesaro, it's got to be a guy like that. So that's who I'm hoping for, and we'll find out tomorrow. Can't wait. I am really bummed out that I was not here on Wednesday with all of you guys to watch the Christian promo on Dynamite. Jesus Christ. You talk about some nuclear shit there. It was great. He's out there in this fucking suede tanned jacket and a turtleneck looking like a prick, interviewed by Tony Schiavone, where he's going to explain himself, why he turned on Jungle Boy, I think the week before when they lost the tag team titles. And heel Christian, I think, is the best Christian. And he brought up, this was so great. You talk about a guy who holds a grudge. He brought up this whole revenge plot because Jungle Boy eliminated Christian from the Casino Battle Royal, which I believe was a year ago. Not this past Double or Nothing, but the Double or Nothing before that is when he got eliminated. And he has basically been hatching this revenge scheme all along. Even Tony Schiavone was like, that's awfully petty. And Christian's like, yeah, it kind of is. Like, yeah, I know it's petty. That's what I'm about. And he said that he hitched his wagon to Jungle Boy and just waited for his spot. And, brought him in, gained his trust. And we all knew that. The thing is, we could see this coming literally right from the beginning. I don't even remember when Christian debuted. Would have been a couple of months probably before that Casino Battle Royal. Maybe Revolution, is that where it was? When he debuted in AEW? Or maybe he debuted on Dynamite. I don't remember. It was sometime around March or something of 2021, I believe. So when he got eliminated by Jungle Boy in the Battle Royal and then befriended him, we were expecting the turn to happen in the summer of 2021, last year. And they went through this whole year-long saga together, which I thought was great. And Jungle Boy and Christian really seemed to have a good relationship, kind of a mentor and a student type of thing. And Christian highlighted all this and talked about all this in the promo and how he was just waiting to pick his spot against Jungle Boy. Now, he mentioned that last week when they lost the tag team titles, he said the one time I don't give that little twerp a pep talk, what does he do? He goes out and loses the tag team titles. So he's putting a lot of blame here on Jungle Boy. And this kind of ties into what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about Christian's heel turn, is that I was kind of hoping to see some sort of a swerve because it feels like they're telegraphing the fuck out of this for the better part of a year. And they kind of did and didn't do that here, which which I actually liked. So the first thing Christian does after talking about why he attacked Jungle Boy, then he starts going after his family, because last week when they lost the tag team titles, Jungle Boy's mom and I believe his sister, at least his mom, was at ringside. Christian was giving them shit on the outside of the ring, and Tony Schiavone asked Christian to explain himself. Why did he do what he did to Jungle Boy's mom last week? And he said that she's hot for him. She just wants a piece of Christian. She just wants a piece of the peeps. And he thinks that Jungle Boy's mom is hot for him, and she wants, Christian to be Jungle Boy's new dad. But he says he can't be his dad because he already has a dad, and Jungle Boy's dad is dead. Talking about, of course, Luke Perry. So this, of course, brought a lot of oohs and ahs. Twitter started freaking out because now they're going here in this promo. Christian goes on to say that his father would be ashamed of him. Jungle Boy's father, that is, Luke Perry, would be ashamed of you. And just goes on and on, trashing the name of Jungle Boy and talking about his dead father until you hear the Jungle Boy music, but it's not Jungle Boy who comes out, it's Luchasaurus. Now, Jungle Boy is dealing with an injury. He wasn't even on Dynamite, so he's out injured for the time being until he gets well enough to come back and work his program with Christian. So out comes Luchasaurus, who is pissed, and he goes right for Christian and starts choking him in the corner. And that's when Christian is on the mic still, and he's like, stop it, remember. And he goes, remember what happened to Marco. And Luchasaurus starts kind of letting up a little bit, and this is something that I mentioned a few weeks back. I said, at this point, you should do some sort of a swerve. Everybody's expecting Christian to turn heel. I would turn Luchasaurus. I would turn Lucha on Jungle Boy for Jungle Boy giving more attention to Christian or whatnot, or do some sort of a little swerve where everybody is expecting one thing and you do something else. But they did go ahead and do the Christian heel turn as we all expected them to do. But now with Luchasaurus coming out to try to get revenge for his friend by choking out Christian, the fact that he is convinced to let go, and Christian is like, come on, let's talk. We got to talk, but not here, in private. And Luchasaurus lets him go. And Christian kind of grabs him and forces a hug on him. I think even pulls him into the heel tunnel when he's leaving too. Great little touches and stuff like that. So, and this is what I talked about. I think it's time. We saw Chris Statlander shed the alien gimmick, and Luchasaurus was a very fun character, with the dinosaur thing and all of that. But how long can you really go on that? And if you wanted to now take advantage of this guy's size, his badassness, the experience he now has, maybe it's time to unmask him and take his gimmick in a different direction. Maybe he can be Christian's new Tomko. And I think Christian needs a heater like that. And I think if he were to use Luchasaurus as his bodyguard or his backup or something like that, and Lucha turned on Jungle Boy, that could add a really fun dynamic to all of this. So I'm kind of hoping that Jurassic Express breaks up. I already wasn't sure if they were ever going to win the tag team titles, so the fact that they did was surprising enough for me. And the fact that they had a longer run than I was expecting them to have was also surprising to me. So I don't see the reason to keep them together. I think Luchasaurus should do the full heel turn, join up with Christian, and you can have 25-year-old underdog, young Jungle Boy trying to fight against these two assholes. I wouldn't hate it. Now, I don't know what Christian meant by when he said, remember what happened to Marco. I mean, we know Marco is no longer with AEW. They have let him go. But I don't know if he's trying to insinuate or imply that Jungle Boy had something to do with Marco leaving or whatever, and Christian's warning that Luchasaurus could suffer the same fate, and was able to convince him. Macho head games, Jedi mind tricks, whatever you want to call them. Christian is a veteran. Christian knows how to do this stuff. Christian knows how to manipulate. And Christian cut a hell of a promo on Dynamite. I loved it. Now, of course, there's going to be people talking about bringing up Luke Perry and Christian's dad and all of this. And there's going to be debate as to whether or not that was the good idea or the right idea, or if it was in bad taste or whatever. I saw a lot of people mentioning on Twitter, boy, I hope Jungle Boy was approved that. I hope he approved it. Of course he did, guys. This isn't even something we should even bring up. I don't even think it was that gnarly. Bringing up, dead people, WWE brought up Eddie Guerrero's death right after he died and crashed his lowrider into the set. Big Show dug up Big Boss Man's dad and hitched him to a car and drove him around the fucking cemetery. And we all remember what, I don't even remember who it was now. It was Charlotte and somebody. Who was Charlotte in the ring with? And they brought up Reed. They brought up fucking Reed. That was the one that was a little touchy because Reed, of course, died very, very young of a drug overdose, and it was really tragic. And to even bring that up in a promo was a little crazy. But this is a situation everybody's parents get brought up in promos. Jerry Lawler used to talk about Helen and Stu Hart being dead before they were even dead. So this wasn't that out of line to me. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But it was kind of funny watching people, a lot of those like really, really anti AEW hating bad faith accounts that just dedicate their entire lives to just shitting on a pro wrestling company for some reason. Not all, but a good portion or most of those accounts are those SJW hating accounts, those dime a dozen. Everybody's mad at cancel culture and they're MAGA people and all that. They're literally a dime a dozen. They're all the same, say the same shit, act the same way. And many of them look the same way. But those are the accounts that are generally so against cancel culture and believe in the freedom of speech and you can say whatever you want. People shouldn't be such snowflakes. It was fun watching them try to decide where they stand on this thing, because if they defend the Christian promo, that means they defend AEW, and you can't have that. But if you shit on AEW, then you look like a snowflake, and you can't have that either. Quite the pickle. It was kind of fun watching people figure out what their opinions are going to be, because like it fucking matters. But I didn't have any problem with it at all. I thought Christian did a great job with the promo, and I'm excited to see where the Christian and Jungle Boy stuff goes, and props to the long-term booking, because that's some long-term ass booking right there, and they haven't even started the program yet, and we're already a year into this, so should be fun to see how this all works out. And Jungle Boy being a 25-year-old kid, if he has a 20-year career, imagine Jungle Boy when he's 45, or he's winding down his career, or he's no longer in the ring. He's a legendary wrestler by now. He's won a world title. He's going to look back to this feud, and this whole thing with Christian is entry level into the big time. I really believe that. So in the long term, and when you're playing the long game, this Christian Jungle Boy is going to be very significant. Christian Jungle Boy feud will be very significant. Might not seem like it now, but it will be. Also on Dynamite on Wednesday, we saw Hangman Page taking on Silas Young in a pretty good match. Was he supposed to face somebody else? No, I think that match was booked all along. Anyway, good match. Hangman won with a buckshot lariat. After the match, Adam Cole comes out to the stage first for story time. Jay White then interrupts him and says, sorry I interrupted story time, but they're still trying to figure out who's going to face him for his championship. And he's like, it's not going to be you, and it's not going to be you either. And he runs down to the ring to confront Hangman Page. They start brawling. Cole then joins in. He grabs the IWGP title, and he looks like he's about to hit Jay White with it until Jay White turns around, and he's like, what the hell, dude? And then you hear the coin drop. The fucking Rainmaker is in the house. I was so pissed that I couldn't be here to watch this, because Okada's been the one man, aside from Tanahashi as well, that we've been really wanting to see in an AEW ring. Okada and Tanahashi and guys like that have worked matches here in the States, but never on cable TV. And to get a look at them, and that whole crowd knew exactly who Okada was. As soon as that coin dropped, the crowd popped big. So... and plus, he's arguably, the best wrestler in the world. Big brawl. Okada and Hangman run off the heels, and that's going to be your match for the IWGP title at Forbidden Door, the four-way between Hangman Page, Adam Cole, Kazuchika Okada, and Jay White for the title. That's going to be fun. Now, of course, on Wednesday, you heard a whole lot of who is that type of thing, and I just find that so ludicrous that fans are so weird now on social media. The big thing now that people do, the haters, the people that aren't interested in the Forbidden Door, they really enjoy telling you how much they're not going to watch the Forbidden Door, or how much they're not interested in Forbidden Door, or how much they don't care about Forbidden Door. They don't care so much about Forbidden Door that they dedicate like 20 tweets per day talking about how much they don't care. That's a whole lot of not caring about Forbidden Door. And then every time somebody else from New Japan appears on AEW TV, you hear the, who is that? Nobody knows who that guy is. Pro wrestling fans do. People don't know who the best wrestler in the world is? Yes, most wrestling fans know who Okada is. If you claim to not know who he is, you're lying. And on top of that, why would you lie about that? Back in my day, wrestling fans used to brag about knowing as much as possible. I was actually seeing people bragging on social media, bragging on Twitter that they don't know who Okada is. They don't know who so-and-so is. Bragging about not knowing who somebody is unless they are in WWE with a complete name change, a complete gimmick change, and a complete attitude change. That's the only way they're going to know these people, is if they're in WWE, the most easily accessible pro wrestling that there is. That's not things that wrestling fans used to brag about back in the day. If anything, it was the opposite. To brag about that now seems a little bit silly. You know, it's one thing to not know who the fuck somebody is in 1980, but you're literally on your phone tweeting you don't know who somebody is when your Google app is right there. You can highlight the dude's name on the very same social media app that you're using, claiming you don't know this guy. Highlight his name, go to look up. It'll take you right over to Google, tell you exactly who Kazuchika Okada is, how many years he's been wrestling, how many championships he's won, how many Tokyo Dome sellouts he's wrestled in front of, everything. So to sit there and claim that you don't know who somebody is when it takes 2.5 seconds to find out who that person is a very strange thing to brag about. And I don't understand why it's considered a burn to point out that more people are going to know people on WWE TV here in the United States than they are New Japan. No shit. But if you're a wrestling fan, like I talked about last week, wrestling fans, music fans, sports fans tend to enjoy all different kinds of sports, all different kinds of musics of all different kinds of levels. Music fans appreciate a good local live band just as much as their Beatles albums in a lot of ways. You know, so it's just such a silly thing for wrestling fans to be tribal about and to plant their flag in the sand. Say, I don't know this guy. Nobody knows who he is. I'm like, these days, everybody should know who he is. These days, everybody has 2 or 3 screens or machines literally within 10 feet of them that will tell you who that is. You don't have to look it up in an encyclopedia. You don't have to go to the library and check out a book to read up on him. You can do it in 2 seconds. So it's just a little bit. So even if you're not lying, I believe these people when they say they don't know who Okada is, they know who he is. They just like to say that. But even if they didn't, and even if that was true, look him up and find out, and you'll see, oh, he looks like he's a pretty big star, actually. He's got several million Twitter followers or whatever. Oh, you know, he actually is somebody. So I just think that it's more of this tribal stuff, more of this anti-AEW sentiment. Not that anti-AEW or WWE sentiment doesn't exist, but a lot of that stuff, nobody's interested in this and nobody wants to watch this type of wrestling. Well, then you don't fucking have to. But pro wrestling fans in general, I believe, should try to like as much pro wrestling as possible. And even if you don't know everybody on the card tomorrow, if you like pro wrestling, you're going to see some amazing matches. To make that illegitimate in your mind, or to downplay this pay-per-view just because you personally don't know who these people are. Well, guess what? That earth we all live on don't revolve around your big-ass head. You're on it. You're on that world. The world doesn't revolve around you. We don't care if you don't know who they are. It doesn't matter. You can not know who they are all you want. And if you want to make 20 tweets about how you don't know who they are, that's fine, but it just makes you look really stupid. Because if you'll take the time to tweet out 5 times that you don't know who somebody is, but you won't take the 1 second it takes to look up who that person is, who's the dumb one here? Look in the mirror. Anywho, we need to get in to Forbidden Door predictions. By the way, last night on Rampage, didn't catch much of that show either. I did see that Tully Blanchard Enterprises did have a tape promo on the show. Brian Cage is back on TV, involved in that, and it looks like they are focusing their efforts mostly on the Ring of Honor champion Jonathan Gresham, and targeting mostly him. Also, Andrade took on Rey Fenix in just a stupidly good match. I watched a little bit of that. Andrade did have help from Roosh to get that match won, and at the end of that, they unmasked poor Rey Fenix. El Facción Ingobernable unmasked Rey Fenix, and of course he did cover himself up, and they got out of there. But that was a very reminiscent of a Rey and Eddie match on Rampage last night. It's all I can think about watching that. I'm like, I'm watching 2022 Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. Is pretty cool to watch. So Rampage looked like a decent show, but much like SmackDown, I didn't catch all of it last night because just really wasn't feeling like watching any more wrestling after the day we had. I had enough work to do just prepping this podcast and stuff. So Anywho, that's going to leave us now with Forbidden Door predictions. Let me cruise over here to the chat, see if there's any super chats I need to hit. Also ask you guys to hit that thumbs up button before we are finished here. And we'll be getting out of here in just a few once we roll through the predictions. La Faction. Sorry, did I say L instead of La? I suck at that stuff. Okada is the Japanese John Cena. I always thought Tanahashi was more John Cena counterpart than Okada. Whenever I thought about like dream matches, I always had John Cena in the ring with Tanahashi over Okada. Okada, I'd like to see in there with like Riddle or something, you know. But I always had Cena and Tanahashi linked up in my mind in terms of their similarities, ring styles, and type of character they are, whatnot. Anywho, all right, all right. I think we're good. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any super chats. I did not. I missed a couple the other week, and I felt bad. Anyway, let's get into Forbidden Door. We're going to start on the buy-in. There are 3 matches listed for the buy-in. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Jesus. 9 on the main card, 3 on the buy-in. Tomorrow is going to be a long day of wrestling. I currently have the stream set for 9 p.m. local time. Will be midnight on the East Coast. So hopefully you guys can stay up late with us and talk Forbidden Door tomorrow night. But let's start with the buy-in here. We've got Max Caster and the Gun Club, taking on LA Dojo. Now, it was hard to look at all these matches, buy-in and main card, and try to balance out the AEW victories and the New Japan victories, because there's got to be. I'm really curious how this collaboration works. I'm really curious how it is backstage and with the powers that be from both organizations trying to book this pay-per-view as fairly as possible, where everybody can, have their moments and everybody can have a couple guys win and that type of stuff. And I'm also real curious if they want to pull anything crazy. We got both titles on the line. Would these two companies, based on the media call and Tony Khan saying that a Forbidden Door 2 is not a definite thing yet, this feels like, at least for right now, this is a one-off type of thing, so I don't think they're going to do anything too crazy here. But you could do a championship switch. You could have Tanahashi win the AEW title. You could have Cole or Page win the New Japan title if you wanted, and can have the belts swapped. It would take some cooperation to do that, but you could do that in Swervis if you wanted to have fun. But I'm going to go and predict this as if this is just going to be a collaboration show where both companies are going to showcase and have their guys showcase and win an even number of matches and that kind of thing. That's kind of how I was predicting this in my head. So in terms of Max Caster and the Gun Club against LA Dojo, I'm going with Gun Club to win that. We've got Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto against Aaron Solo and QT Marshall. I kind of want to pick QT and Solo, but I'm not. I'm going to go with Yoshihashi and Goto to win that one. And also we have Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland against Kanemaru and El Desperado. That's going to be one that I don't think the AEW guys are going to win, because I feel like Swerve and Lee might have some problems with each other, even though it feels like they're trying to formulate a cohesive team. I feel like maybe some problems could arise there, and I actually think they're going to lose. So I'm going to pick them to lose. I don't know how good that prediction is. I'm not confident about it, but I am predicting Lee and Strickland to actually go down on the buy-in. I don't know how smart of a pick that is, but I wanted to change things up. Main card now. Let's start, I guess, way down here at the bottom. We've got basically the Bullet Club versus the Dudes with Attitudes. So we've got the Young Bucks and El Phantasmo taking on Darby Allin, Sting, and Darby maybe with Sting. This is a 3-on-3. I've got this wrong. I thought it was an 8-man tag. This is a 6-man tag. Is Sting wrestling, or is he just backing up Darby? I think he's backing up Darby. So Sting's backing up Darby. Hikuleo's backing up the Bullet Club, and we've got Darby Allin, Hiromu Takahashi, and Shingo Takagi. So I'm going to go Bullet Club on that. I'm going to go Bucks and El Phantasmo to win over Darby and company in that one. So let's go Bullet Club over the Dudes with the Attitudes, or the Attitudes with the Dudes. I got that match wrong. Something is not right there. I have that typed out wrong. I don't even know what that fucking match is, if it's a 6 or 8 man tag. Anywho, either way, I'm picking the Bullet Club. Then we've got another 6-man weirdness thing here. We've got Chris Jericho, Minoru Suzuki, and Sammy Guevara. Very interesting trio there. Some of these combinations were a little weird. Taking on Eddie Kingston, Shota Umino, who I believe is Red Shoes' son, I think, and Wheeler Yuta. Now, the winner of this gets a 1-man advantage at Blood and Guts on Wednesday. So I kind of feel like Jericho Appreciation Society is going to lose at Blood and Guts. So I'm going to pick them to win here. I think Jericho, Sammy, and Suzuki get the win here, and they get the 1-man advantage at Blood and Guts. Zack Sabre Jr. taking on an opponent to be determined and to be announced by Bryan Danielson. Handpicked by Bryan Danielson. Like we talked about earlier when we talked about Dynamite, I think you got to go Cesaro. He's the guy I'm picking. A lot of other good possibilities, namely Johnny Gargano. I think Johnny Gargano would be great in a technical wrestling match against Zack Sabre Jr., but I think Cesaro would be better in the match against Zack and Blood and Guts as well. Cesaro makes a better person in the Blood and Guts match to me. That's why I'm leaning towards him. I think the fans are going to be very disappointed if it's not him, because we already thought we might see him at Double or Nothing, and we didn't. And we thought we might see him in the Owen tournament, and we didn't. So it feels like now has got to be the time for him to show up, and it would make a lot of sense for Danielson to pick him. They have a lot of history in WWE and prior to WWE. So I'm going with Cesaro to not only be the opponent for Zack Sabre Jr., but also to defeat Zack Sabre Jr. We've got a winner-take-all match for the IWGP and Ring of Honor tag team titles. So now we are in a position where a belt could wind up in another company. We've got IWGP champions Jeff Cobb and Great O'Khan, who might be my favorite guy in all of New Japan, taking on FTR, and Roppongi Vice. I'm going FTR. I think FTR is the best tag team in the world. I think they're great. Arguably, I should say, the best tag team in the world. They don't have to... Maybe they're my favorite tag team right now is how I'd put them. They're great, and I think they're on a roll, and they're the hottest team, and they've been the team that has been branching out the most. They have collected a lot of championships already. They've already been AAA tag team champions. Adding this one to their tag team career legacy, I think, is something that would be great for both guys. They both probably want, and both are probably really excited about, and they can go back over there and drop these belts or whatever when they need to. So I think FTR is going to capture the IWGP Tag Team Championships, and they're going to be having a whole lot of wrestling belts around their waist sooner rather than later. FTR wins tomorrow. Fatal four-way, or four-way, I should say, for the AEW, or to crown the brand new AEW All-Atlantic Champion, brand new title belt. We went through some qualifying matches and all that to get to our foursome here. However, we did lose one competitor. Tomohiro Ishii was knocked out of this match, not cleared to compete, so he's been booted and replaced by Clark Connors, who's another, big, rough and tough guy. He's going to be joining Malachi Black, Miro, and Pac in a four-way. Winner becomes the new All-Atlantic Champion. I'm going to rule out Clark Connors right away because I don't think AEW is going to crown their brand new title with a replacement from another company. Didn't think Connors or Ishii really had a chance to win this match anyway, so we're going to eliminate him. Pac would be great because I fucking love Pac, but really I'm looking at Miro and Malachi Black. It's got to be one of these two. And as much as I love Malachi, I'm hoping that him and Pac cancel each other out somehow. There's some brawling between them, maybe some mist. Don't forget Julie Hart, I believe, did cost Pac the match when she misted him at Double or Nothing, so maybe she shows up and Pac chases her away, or something is still unresolved there, and that allows Miro to basically corner and isolate Clark Connors and beat him for the title. That's the way I think it's going to go, or that's the way it should go. I'll be equally happy, I guess, if Malachi or Miro wins, but I think I'm leaning towards Miro. I think he would be a perfect guy to have your first championship belt around the waist of. Brand new title, you got to establish it strongly, and doing it with Miro based on what we already saw him do with the TNT title, a while back, I think he makes the most sense to win the All-Atlantic Championship belt. So I'm going Miro to win the title there. I can't wait for this one. IWGP United States title on the line. Will Ospreay defending against Orange Cassidy. This match is going to be good. I know everybody thinks Orange Cassidy is a comedy wrestler. He is not. He incorporates comedy into his wrestling, but he's not a comedy wrestler and comedy wrestler only. Dude's athletic as hell. Dude can go. Look at his match with Pac he had a while back, how good that was. This dude has had some barn burners. His match with Will Ospreay will be no different. Orange Cassidy will not win the U.S. title here, I don't believe. I think Will Ospreay will beat him. And I know Ospreay and Cassidy have got history too. I know there's one picture that exists with Will Ospreay dressed as Orange Cassidy, and they're in the ring together doing the thumbs up. They do look alike, but Will Ospreay is a little bit bigger and honestly a little bit better of a wrestler as well. And as good as Cassidy is and as good as this match is going to be, I still firmly believe that Will Ospreay will be retaining the U.S. title in that one. We've got an AEW Women's Championship match. Champion Thunder Rosa defending against Toni Storm. I really like this match on paper. I really like Toni Storm. I really want Toni Storm to be the AEW Women's Champion. However, I don't know if it's going to be here. I don't think she's going to beat Thunder Rosa for the title. I think Thunder Rosa will and should retain. I still think she deserves to have a healthy run here before we start the conversation of her dropping it. Plus, based on her TV time and some of her frustrations, I think AEW owes it to her to give her a little bit more of a run here. And then by the time we get to All Out, then maybe we can start talking about her coughing up the title. But I'm going to go Thunder Rosa to beat Toni Storm, but for Toni Storm to have her day very soon. And what's that move called where she's basically doing the Rikishi thing where she runs in the corner and slams her ass into your face? Man, that is an ugly looking bump to take if you're on the receiving end of that. The last 3 of those I've seen her throw have made me jump out of my chair. One of them was live here on the watch along. But Toni Storm, I love, but I don't think tomorrow is going to be her day. IWGP World Heavyweight title on the line, also in a 4-way. Adam Cole, Adam Page, Okada, and Jay White, who is the champion, who will be defending his title in this match. This is where I feel like they could have some fun if the two companies wanted to wife swap their championship belts for a little while and have somebody like Adam Cole or Hangman Page win the IWGP title. They could do it here, but I just feel like that's probably not going to be the case. Jay White just won the title against Okada at Dominion, right? So he's just been crowned the champion. I thought maybe they put the belt on him so he could come over and work one-on-one instead of against Page instead of Okada and Page. But the more I think about it, I think he's going to hang on to the title. So I'm going to go Jay White to retain in that 4-way match. And I did hear some rumors about Cole not being cleared to work either. So I don't know if they're going to try to yank him out of this match last minute. But as of right now, I do believe Cole is in it, but I think Jay White's going to come out on top. Hip Attack. Thank you for the name of that move. I couldn't remember what it was called. Pretty simple name for a move. Hip Attack. Should be called the Ass Attack because that's what it was, and it's gnarly looking. So, yeah, good for Toni Storm. Hopefully that Hip Attack will bring her some gold because Toni Storm's one of my favorites in the biz right now. And finally, the main event interim AEW World Championship match. Hiroshi Tanahashi taking on Jon Moxley. The winner becomes the AEW champion until CM Punk comes back, and then they will face off for the permanent AEW championship, I suppose. This should be a fun match to see on paper, Tanahashi and Moxley. In the end, though, I picked Jay White to retain his title in that match, so I feel like Jon Moxley is the likely choice, although if there was one guy, even maybe more so than Okada, in New Japan, that if I'm Tony Khan, I would feel comfortable letting have my company's championship belt. Tanahashi might even be a pick of mine above Okada, just based on his longevity, his career, the respect he has. If I'm Tony Khan, I'm like, you know what? I would be honored if this guy was on my championship history legacy. I would love to look back in the record books 30 years from now and see his name as one of the first names ever to hold the title. I personally would have no problem with that, but you also have to tie in the interim part of this. And as cool as a Tanahashi and CM Punk match would be, I feel like Jon Moxley is the guy. He's already been AEW World Champion before. He'll be the first guy to hold it twice, although I don't know how these interim things work. I don't know if this actually goes down as an actual title run for him in the record books, or if it's an asterisk because it's an interim. I don't know how it works, but I feel like Moxley is the reliable, proven star, and he's over, and the crowd loves him, and he'd be a perfect guy to hang on to that title until CM Punk comes back. So I'm going to go Jon Moxley to defeat Tanahashi in what will probably be the main event and win the interim World Championship belt. They could have CM Punk show up there. It is in the United Center, right? I think CM Punk should be there up in the skybox, resting his ankle on crutches, maybe even at ringside to give the belt to Moxley. Maybe somebody even attacks CM Punk to get some more heat or something like that. I don't know. But it's in the United Center. It's in Chicago. I think CM Punk should try to hobble his way out there, or at least be in one of the skyboxes observing the show and to find out who he's going to be wrestling when he gets healthy and comes back from his foot injury. So, yeah, there you go. I hope I did well with these predictions. Sorry for butchering a couple of these names here, but I don't read these names out loud very often, so it's hard for me because I'm just Greg. But anyway, I think that does it all for my notes. I'm just scrolling through to see if there's anything else I needed to mention. It doesn't look like it. I will cruise over here to the chat and see if there's anything to say here. Don't think so. No more super chats to be answered. Kota Ibushi, forgot about him. Now, he was also injured, and he's got some serious drama and turmoil in New Japan. I have not actually looked into the latest on that recently, so I'm curious about the Ibushi situation and if anything got smoothed over or if he's able to make any sort of appearance tomorrow at all. That would be pretty badass. The 8-man got changed to a 6-man. Thank you for that, Big Dub. Yeah, some of these notes were made last night, so I was having trouble reading my own shit here. But it's going to be one hell of a stacked card tomorrow. We probably will see a couple of late-minute changes, maybe even a substitution or two. But basically, the way I look at it is if you are a fan of professional wrestling, of people getting inside a ring and pretending to fight, you should really watch tomorrow's show. It would be so silly to rob yourself of great professional wrestling that you claim to love because people on social media make you annoyed. Don't take that away from yourself. You don't want to spend the $50, fine. Don't spend the $50. At least that's a reason that someone could at least wrap their head around. But this idea that pro wrestling fans don't want to watch a show that's going to be 4 fucking hours of great pro wrestling is a little weird to me. It's just weird. Don't know why y'all are like that. So if you got nothing to do tomorrow, you got $50 to spare, even if you're an AEW hater, you've got one of those accounts that just dedicates their lives to shitting on that because people's opinions on social media matters. If you're one of those people, give it a shot. Turn off your Twitter tomorrow. Order the pay-per-view. Sit back, watch it. See if you like it. I know, who am I kidding? You're not going to do that. But just a suggestion, I think if you actually did and took my advice, you might not hate it as bad as you think you will. I think tomorrow's going to be fun. I hope you guys can join us tomorrow night after the show. Make sure you're here to review Forbidden Door with us. And during Forbidden Door, you can follow me over on Twitter at GoodMikeWork. I'll be making all of my match-by-match tweets and my match-by-match reactions of what's going on. It should be a good day. I'm going to crack open some Broken Skull lagers, and we're going to chill out tomorrow and watch and talk about some good wrestling. And then the very next day is Monday Night Raw and John Cena's return. And then 2 days later is Blood and Guts. It is going to be a big, long week here on the channel. And then I leave on vacation. So next week, you're going to get one more good week out of me. Monday for Raw, Wednesday for the Dynamite Watch Along. We'll be up here 1 week from today for the podcast. 1 week from today for Money in the Bank review. Don't forget. So it's going to change everything up. So let me give this to you. Monday, Raw review. Wednesday, we're going to do Dynamite Watch Along. Friday afternoon, we'll bust out Money in the Bank predictions. Saturday night, Money in the Bank review. Sunday night, nothing on July 3rd. No watch along that night. I will be at work. Monday night, July 4th, nothing. So 1 week from today on our Money in the Bank review will be your final video out of me for about 9 days because I'm going to Hawaii. Yeah, 1 week. So, yeah, one big full week next week, and then next Saturday we'll wrap it up for the Gregster, and I head out to the Pacific Ocean. So that's what's going to be on tap for this week. Make a note, put it in your phone, tie a string around your balls, whatever you got to do, just do it. I appreciate you guys being here. Have a great rest of your Saturday afternoon and your Saturday evening, and we'll catch you right here tomorrow for Forbidden.